welcome to the deep dive. Okay, picture this. You've got a high-ranking official facing impeachment. The political heat is definitely rising. And then, bam, a bombshell. The Supreme Court of the Philippines, just on July 25th, 2025, drops this unanimous ruling, and it declares Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment unconstitutional.
Unanimous, yeah. That's significant.
It really is. And this isn't, just some dry legal point. It feels like a pivotal moment. It really sharpens that tension, that old tug-of-war between the courts and the legislature.
Absolutely.
So today we're going deep. What does this actually mean for power, for accountability in the Philippines?
Well, what's really fascinating, I think, is how this forces a kind of national reckoning on some pretty basic constitutional questions.
Like what?
Like, when does an impeachment actually begin? What counts as initiated? What does due process really mean in a process that is, let's face it, inherently political?
Right, it's not just a court trial.
Exactly. And fundamentally, where does the power of one branch, say the judiciary, and another, like the legislature, begin?
Right.
It's definitely stirred things up. Praise on one side, but also condemnation.
Condemnation for what, exactly?
For what critics are calling judicial overreach, using the court's power to shield powerful figures.
Okay, so let's unpack the ruling itself, because this is where it gets really interesting. Two main pillars.
Right. That's right. Two key parts.
The first is this, novel reinterpretation of the constitutional rule. The one that basically says you can't impeach the same official more than once within a year.
There's a year bar, yeah.
So the court looked at those first three complaints against the vice president, filed back in December 2024, then archived by the House.
Right. They were never really acted upon in a full sense.
But the court said, nope, archiving them meant they were effectively terminated and dismissed. And that act, the termination, they decided that was the initiation.
Which is a huge shift, because that initiation definition immediately triggers the one-year ban. So, the fourth complaint, the one filed February 5th, 2025, suddenly it's unconstitutional because it falls inside that prohibited year.
That sounds controversial.
Yeah.
Especially given past rulings.
Extremely controversial. I mean, you've got 2 decades of established case law, Francisco v. House from 2003, Gutierrez v. House in 2011, that clearly said initiate means filing a verified complaint and sending it to the Justice Committee.
So a 2-step process.
Yes. And now the court seems to have changed the rules and applied this new rule backwards, retroactively, which one retired justice even called rather unfair to the House. They were playing by the known rules.
Okay, so Pillar 1 changes the timing. What about Pillar 2?
Pillar 2 changes the process itself. The court basically said, look, impeachment isn't purely political. And because it's not purely political, they imposed new requirements, judicial requirements for due process within the House.
What kind of requirements? Things not in the Constitution.
Exactly. Things like giving the respondent, the VP in this case, a chance to be heard on the draft charges before they even go to the Senate.
Before the trial stage.
Correct. And making sure all House members get all the evidence. But, Article Expiv, Section 3.4 of the Constitution, it just says a complaint verified by 1/3 of the House is the articles of impeachment.
It doesn't mention these extra steps.
Nope. Historically, the Senate trial is where you get that full due process, cross-examination, the works. So critics are saying this is the court acting like a legislature.
Judicial legislation.
That's the term being used, yeah. Like the court's writing new rules that aren't in the Constitution, basically supervising Congress's impeachment power.
So if the court is making new rules for Congress, what does that do to the separation of powers? That sounds like a pretty direct impact.
Oh, absolutely. Systemically. If you look at the bigger picture here, this ruling is a major consolidation of judicial power.
How so?
It effectively creates a kind of judicial veto over impeachment. The court now has this huge say right at the beginning and during the process. It makes it, arguably much harder to impeach anyone high up from now on.
And you mentioned a potential loophole.
Yes, the procedural shield idea. Think about it. Someone could file a deliberately weak, a sham complaint, get it noted, maybe archived. Under this ruling, that counts as initiation. Boom. It blocks any real substantial complaint for a whole year. It could be used strategically.
Wow. Okay, so politically, this is obviously a huge win for Vice President Duterte.
Undeniably, the immediate threat, gone. A major roadblock on her path to, what many expect to be a 2028 presidential run, cleared.
But not everyone's celebrating.
Far from it. Civil society groups have been quite vocal, calling it a grave injustice, and it's definitely stirred up old suspicions about the Supreme Court's independence.
Because of the appointments.
That's certainly fueling it. The fact that 12 of the 15 justices were appointed by her father, the former president, well, it feeds perceptions of bias, fair or not, and that risks damaging public trust in the institutions themselves.
It puts the focus back on accountability, doesn't it?
It really does, and maybe this is a question for you, the listener. If a key constitutional tool, like impeachment, is, let's say, constrained or made harder to use, how does a democracy ensure accountability?
What are the alternatives?
Well, it arguably puts more pressure on other actors, civil society, the media, the public itself, to demand transparency, to hold power accountable through, non-judicial means. Public pressure, investigation, reporting.
So a final thought, maybe something for you to mull over. We've seen suggestions, people like Randy David mentioning it. Should the Philippines think about creating a dedicated constitutional court?
Interesting idea.
A special court just for these highly charged constitutional issues, maybe to take some of the political heat off the main Supreme Court. Could that help depoliticize these really crucial legal fights? Something to consider.